Hey guys, Landon here with 515 Hosting, and welcome to another episode of Wallet Bakes, where we talk about all things WordPress, web design, web hosting, and search engine optimization while my pizza bakes. It's been a little while since I got on here, but I had some time today. I had popped a pizza in the oven, and I was like, wait, I should do another video. And today, we're going to talk about why you should have your own website on a web hosting plan. Now, when I mention having your own website, what I mean is having files and databases that you control. Now, yeah, you have to upload those files onto a third-party web host. You could run your own server if you had a dedicated IP address to your home or had the bandwidth to do so, but generally it's just better to get a web hosting plan. Now, the reason that you want to have your own website is not only because of control of your own files, although that's a major part of it, because if you use a service like, say, Medium for blogging, and Medium decides to shut down one day, your website is gone. Everything you own is proprietary to that service. It's uploaded to that service. There's no easy way to export it. There's no easy way to take that content and move it somewhere else, unless you've got some sort of backup of those blogs in document form that you can copy and paste. And that's really kind of the primary root of why this is so important. Because one of the things that a small business ran into, I believe it was last year, and I don't remember if they were a far right extremist or a far left extremist, but they were a t-shirt shop. And what they were selling wasn't illegal, but it was definitely something that was inappropriate, and it was something that was probably sort of borderline offensive, depending upon what side of the fence you were on politically. And so they had this, I believe it was a Shopify store, and everything was going great, and then one day their website just disappeared and all of their revenues just ceased. And the reason was because the company that they had used for their business had shut them down. They had decided that what they were selling was hate, and they didn't want to be associated with that, so they shut them down. Now, whatever your beliefs with that is in terms of that company is one thing, but the idea that that company could just be shut down in a matter of minutes and lose everything, lose all sorts of revenues because they didn't own what their website was, is unnerving. And that's not just something that you have an issue with for a business that might be offensive. It can happen to any business. Let's say that you have a Squarespace store, and Squarespace just one day decides that they're not making enough money. They're no longer able to be a solvent company, and they declare bankruptcy. Now, you might say, well, another company might buy them out. Maybe, maybe not. And then what happens to your website? You now have this website built on this system that you don't own. And so if you want to move your business elsewhere, you have to start from scratch. And that is really where this core issue again stems. It's having control of your files. It's the ability to move where you need to go to stay in business, and not have third parties tell you what you can and can't do with your content. Yes, web hosts often do have terms and conditions. You know, if you have, let's say, an adult site, many web hosts aren't going to allow you to have adult content. But if that's where you're wanting to be in, you can go out there and find a web host that does so. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want to start building a website that is an adult website, let's say, and all of a sudden be shut down and be like, oh no, I lost everything. Now I need to go somewhere else. And that can happen with anything, not just offensive content again. It can happen with any sort of content that you don't control. And that is really what owning your own website is all about. The other reason that it becomes really important is that you can maximize your revenues. One of the things that often happens with, say, a Shopify store is that you have certain plans that are tiered to allow you certain access to features. So if you want to access additional features, you have to increase the amount that you're spending. And that's often already several dollars a month, more than what it would cost just to have an open source website like WordPress on an affordable web hosting plan. So let's say that you want to have a small e-commerce store. You can probably do so for, say, $10 to $15 a month on a reasonable web hosting plan. But if you want to do that same store on Shopify, you might be looking at $30 a month, so almost double. And if you want to grow that store, where you're probably not going to have issues with the web hosting side of things, growing it and tiering it up, if you want to grow that on a Shopify side, you have to jump up your level of packages, because some of those are limited in the amount of items that you can have. They're limited in the amount of features that you can have, and you just don't run into those things when you're working with an open source program. At the end of the day, those open source programs on a web hosting plan, like WordPress on 515 hosting, is only limited by the amount of computing power and domains that are available on that web hosting plan. And because there's physical limitations to the hardware, but there's nothing that says you can't have 1,000 products. There's nothing that says you can't have 1,000,000 products. There's nothing that says you can only sell this amount of revenue. There's nothing that says you have to do this or this or this. It's your website, and you're free to build whatever you want. You can hire a developer to create new code for your website. You can't do those types of things on a proprietary system like Shopify or Squarespace or Medium in terms of blogging. And so things like how you want your site to look, things that you want your site to do, are going to be very, very limited. And so not only does it cost you money on that front in terms of having to upgrade to new packages to get the features that you want, but it starts to cost more money in terms of loss of revenue, and that maybe a feature you want to implement or a certain design that you feel is going to maximize your profits can't be done because that's just not available through those providers. So I think that's kind of the main gist of why you want to own your own website, and why just getting a web hosting plan and using something like WordPress or something similar, where you can do what you want with your files. You can save a backup to a remote location that you can upload somewhere else in a moment's notice. These things are super, super important. And that's kind of the basis of why this is such an important video to make, because I feel like a lot of people just get up one morning and say, I'm going to build a website, and they sign up for Squarespace, they build something simple, and they don't really think about the limitations that they're eventually going to run into. And then at that point, you know, they've grown this business and they're sort of stuck. And I think that's unfortunate. And if you can release this sort of information early to people to give them something to think about, that's valuable. Now, that said, there are a few benefits to those systems that do make sense for some people. You know, those systems aren't going to have the potential to break, maybe, if you do something wrong, because you have a whole support staff and such that can help you with the features. So you're not gonna have to worry about clicking a wrong button and losing a page and just being SOL. But at the same time, you're not going to have issues where you try to do something custom and you break something, because again, you have a limited tool set that they're going to allow you to access, and they're not going to allow you to do anything that breaks your website or breaks their website. And while that's pretty rare, when you look at a WordPress website that's very basic, it can become an issue if you start doing custom things or using plugins and you just mindlessly click update and all of a sudden you end up with an incompatibility. These things do happen, and they're not something that really happens on the Shopify side. So it's sort of a balancing act. If you can have the know-how to run backups and run a staging site and run these updates on a staging site to make sure everything's working, you can avoid a lot of that stuff. But these are things that are worth mentioning, because it's two sides of a coin to think about. So anyways, I think we got a few seconds and a little buzzer will go off to get my pizza. So hopefully this video has helped, and hit that like or subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. All right, we'll see you guys around.